A number of other people I'll recognize as we introduce them as speakers. And we're going to proceed now with Larry Lee, who is the ASME National Director.
The Ohio and Erie Canal National Heritage Corridor, my friends, is America's 7th National Heritage Corridor. In June of that same year, similar groups came together and we won the state's first designated scenic byway in June of 1996. It's a two-lane highway system or roadway system, laid fabulous deposits of iron ore, the basic ingredient of steel. But there was a problem. The trouble was that between Lake Superior and the lower Great Lakes, there was a series of rapids along 1 mile near Sault Ste. Marie. And all of those resources of iron ore in the Superior region were useless because of this natural barrier. In order to ship that ore here, you had to carry it in one ship, unload it, take it overland, and reload another ship with ore. And when it came to a lock system was built through the rapids, and the Columbia became the first ship to carry ore all the way from Lake Superior to Cleveland. Her maiden voyage that day, twisting down the Cuyahoga River, ushered in an age of steel. Soon our mills, hungry for steel, began devouring iron ore. As more was needed, more was mined. To haul it, more and more ships were built. And then the trouble started. the docks of the lower lakes began to be choked with iron ore. The mines produced it, the ships moved on schedule to deliver it, but when they reached their port of destination, well, that catwalk down to the docks and put it in piles. You can imagine the time and the energy and the labor costs to do such a thing. When they were only halfway through the hold, they actually had to build a platform. They had to dig and put the ore up onto a... You need a beer, you're right. The spectators... that's another thing about Huletts and heavy metal. Anyway, at any rate, he had solved that problem. And the ore now began to move quickly. And in response, blast furnaces and steel mills grew larger. Ships became bigger and longer. And loading and unloading decks also grew to accommodate them.
That I'm representing the president of the society who lives in Florida and couldn't see to make his schedule up here for this event. But he sends his congratulations and he hopes everybody's having a good time this afternoon. He had something to do with ordering the weather, I think, because it's delightful, isn't it? I was raised of ours, so I've had a lot of interest in this project. And my wife and I have lived in Cleveland for the past 45 years, on the west side now. I'm retired from the Lewis Research Center as a research engineer, and of course been active in ASME. Now there's some things that I have to try to acknowledge, and I'm going to try to do this from these notes if they'll stay with me. I would first like to recognize Ray Sykas, who came up and changed this microphone for me, because Ray has done a momentous task here in organizing this event. So Ray, we thank you. And we also thank the Port of Cleveland for allowing us to have this event today. So thank you, both of you. And I'll have the representative, Mr. Pfeiffer, coming up here, and just if the paper doesn't blow away. This is what's on the plaque, and some of you will have an opportunity, I hope, to see it. The Hulett, a highly efficient materials handling machine, unique to the Great Lakes, was invented by a Clevelander, George Hulett, born in 1846 and died in 1923. The first was a steam-powered with a 10-ton capacity grab bucket. It went into service, as was mentioned, in Conneaut, Ohio in 1899. It could unload an ore boat at the rate of 275 tons an hour. The later Huletts, these were electrically powered, like the ones here. The various motions of the 17-ton bucket were controlled by an operator riding in a small cab in the vertical leg, just above the bucket. Each machine could unload 1,000 tons an hour. The Hulett's clear superiority over existing mechanical unloaders revolutionized ore handling and led to its
Workers of America. He currently works as a labor consultant. He was instrumental in persuading the Cleveland-Cuyahoga Port Authority to accept the ASME landmark honor, and by himself helped raise almost all the costs for subsidizing the booking of the Good Time 3, which we're enjoying today. With that, I'd like to introduce Frank to talk about his experiences with the Huletts.
Boy, we sure got a beautiful day, didn't we? Are you happy to be here? Are you having a good time? Are we here for a good cause? And is our cause right and just? You said it. And no matter how long-winded we get, we know that there's no way that you could leave here and go home. Well, anyhow, the one thing that, you know what, now that I realize what an advance, I would have held a lot of union meetings on the boat. Because by the time I got through with the meeting, there was nobody in attendance. But listen, I know that there was one amongst us up here on the stage that was recognized. But I want to make it a little bit more of a recognition. And I'll tell you why. Because we had a very good preservation committee. There's no doubt about that. But you have to have someone that's going to put the time in. You have to have someone that's dedicated, someone that's devoted, someone that's really zealous. As a matter of fact, this guy that I'm about to introduce was overbearing. Believe me, we would never have had this day if it wasn't for Ray. Well, here we are. And it is a beautiful day. And I know on the way going home tonight, I'm going to be singing a song. You know, what a beautiful day it is, what a rare mood I'm in, and it's almost like falling in love. Well, I did fall in love in 1950 when I went to work over at U.S. Steel on the ore docks down on the Cuyahoga River and had the first opportunity as a laborer down in the hole of the boat. That's the first place they sent me, shoveling the ore out of the corners. And all of a sudden I see that monster coming down into the hole to grab a great big pile of ore and take it out. Now, we're going to have to make a change in the anatomy, Tim, because I know you call them things over there arms. Well, they're not arms. By definition of anybody that ever ran one, they're the legs, right? They're the legs. And I think the last speaker just made reference to the leg. And by the way, we do have two other Hulett operators here with us today. Bob McKim and George Iremi. How about you guys standing up and let's give these operators a hand. Hey, I want to straighten something out right away. You know, here we are in front of the Huletts and what's referred to as Whiskey Island. Now, I don't know why they call this Whiskey Island, but I can assure you of one thing. That none of the crew that ran those Huletts drank whiskey while they were running them because that would be impossible, right? But anyhow, afterwards you had to go stop and have a drink before you went home. But if you look at the Hulett over there, any one of them, you can see where you got your spades, the bucket. The bucket is closed right now, and then you got that long leg that goes up, and there's a couple of spirals, one in the middle of that leg, and then there's a spiral up at the top, and of course that whole leg spins around. Now you couldn't spin it around the way it's sitting in there. It would have to be spun around after it was out over the boat or down in the boat. Now the operator, as a matter of fact, you may be able to see it there. There's like little windows just above those spades. That's the cab. And it's no bigger than a clothes closet, believe me, and a small clothes closet at that. So that's where the operator crawls in through the window on the side. He crawls in the hole over there, into the cab. You have approximately 7 controllers in there. You have a trolley controller that takes that big leg and moves it straight out. Just imagine it coming straight out, and there'd be a boat dock there with a hole, a hatch, and then that whole big leg would start down with the operator riding in that cab right above the bucket. And right down into the bowels of the boat, grabbing the oar, taking it up, and then going back out over the dock. And I would have to say, George, that you could average out to about a minute a trip. About a minute a trip. By the time you would leave up at the top and dump into that hopper and go back down into the boat, grab another bite, come up and dump into the hopper, they were averaging out to about a minute a trip. Well, it is a fascinating piece of equipment. And this is about all that's left. And to my estimation, what you're looking at here is something that very definitely is rare and it's precious. And the reason it's referred to as rare and precious by me is because it is an engineering phenomenon. It is an engineering phenomenon, believe me when I tell you that. And what you have is something that's electrical, that's mechanical, and that is structural as far as being an engineering genius. And there's 75 of them, because I understand there were 77 of them that were built here in Cleveland. But those Huletts are definitely responsible for the revolution that had taken place in regards to the American steel industry. Now, the American steel industry happens to be the best industry in the entire world, and that's because of those Huletts right there. Now, they said that there were 77 of them, and they were all over the Great Lakes, including up in Chicago. And just imagine the tonnages that they brought in, because the ones that you have to understand, in order to have a lot of tonnage of steel, you have to have a lot of tonnage of ore. And so that's the phenomenon of the whole thing, what these machines were capable of picking up and bringing in.
Most of us got a chance before this event to go over to the Mather Museum, which is also an ASME historical landmark, and tour it. And I'd like to thank the staff of the Mather Museum for their patience in handling such a large crowd and for all the help they've given us to this event. Next, we're going to have a couple people come up and give their congratulations.
The Huletts, as you learned this today, if you do not already know, are partners in commerce, or former partners in commerce. And we feel very good about having them join us in this wonderful honor that is only shared by about 200 landmarks across the nation, about 4 of which are in the greater Cleveland area. And there is a good reason for this evening in 1995. So on behalf of the crew, I extend our most hearty welcome to the Huletts to belong to this wonderful organization of historic industrial landmarks. Thank you.
Next, we have Genevieve Ray, who is the current president of the Cleveland Waterfront Coalition. She has served on the City of Cleveland Review Commissions and has been an ardent proponent of citizen involvement in Cleveland's future development planning.
They are on the city's design review board, and they will play an extremely important role in determining whether these great dinosaurs, as Mr. Ellis says, will go to the scrap heap or will be preserved for future generations.
Just to note the significance of the event, we have
As you've heard from me far too long already. I just want to introduce two people on the podium that will each read a certificate from their respective legislative bodies. And I guess we'll go in ascending order, which means we'll start with the City of Cleveland and our fine councilman, Joe Simperman. Joe?
Thank you all very much for giving the City Council this time an opportunity and an appreciation of the culture where I came from. So, as a person who's 28 years old and never saw these things in operation, I would really like to take this opportunity to thank you for my inheritance. These Huletts today, to me, are one of the most valuable things that my generation can thank you for. So that being said, on behalf of Tim Molina, who's the councilman in this ward, Jay Westbrook, the council president, Nelson Cintron, who is represented today by Mr. Rick Nagan, I would like to read the the resolution from the City of Cleveland. And we'll be bestowing this, I believe, to the Port Authority. Is that right? Whereas this council of the City of Cleveland is most sincerely proud and pleased to recognize that the Hulett ore and Clevelander George Hulett, the Huletts truly revolutionized ore handling and the shipping industry. Whereas some of the supporting, the Restoration Society, the Waterfront Coalition, the Great Lakes Historical Society, the Canal Corridor, the Preservation Alliance, the United Steelworkers of America District 1, the Steelworkers...
I want to get Huletts with the skyline.
Yeah, we're not going that far west, but look.
I get some skyline shots. It's on my camera.
Yeah.
It's going to the Canal Corridor.
And especially with the sun, it would be beautiful.
That would be great to get in. Let's get up there.
I took the elevator.
photo.